Next, we're going to talk about the WP Socializer plugin. And you can see this Socializer plugin is listed right here. I'm not going to try the name of the plugin creator, but you can see it right there. And what I want to show you is exactly what it does, and then we'll look at some of the settings and figure out how you can add the social sites that you want to add to your site. All right, so let's take a look here. So one of the things that it does, it'll actually do two different things for you, is put a little social bar over here. So if you have a page or a blog post, this is a real nice and easy way to allow people to share this page with their friends. And you'll see that as you scroll down, it actually follows. And so this never disappears. So anytime somebody's looking down here, let's say at the contents of this course, and they really like what they see, hey, I've got a friend who would really like this. Well, I'm going to go ahead and, either like this, or I'm going to tweet this out to people. I can share it with somebody on LinkedIn. I can pin this on Pinterest or use Google+. You can add a lot more social sites to this list here, but if it gets too big, it just kind of gets unwieldy and sort of takes over the page. So I would just probably go with the basics for your geographical area. Google+ or Pinterest or LinkedIn may not be a big thing as far as social networks in your area of the world, so just pick the ones you want and plug them in here. Now the other thing it'll do, if we go to the blog post, I'll give you another example, and we'll go ahead and click on a blog post. So we see our little bar here again on the left side that follows us down as we read through the page, and up top here you can actually see a couple of buttons here as well. You can tweet it, you can add it to Google+, you can share with LinkedIn, and now the Facebook button just popped up here, as well as Stumble Upon. So you can add a few of those. I'm sure you've seen this on blog posts before. It's just a nice, easy way to share. And if you go all the way down to the bottom, you have a bunch of icons down here, and you can see that it's a nice little jump look here. So as you scroll over them, they jump up in the air and fade out a little bit. And you can add virtually any social network down here. So this is where the kind of the big guys come into play. I have sites that have, 2 or even 3 rows all the way down here of different sites because they're applicable all over the world. And while these might be the biggest ones in the United States where I live, in other areas of the country, they may not use these social networking sites. So, if you're basing everything you do in North America, you may have a short list like this, but if your business is all over the globe or people read your blog from all over the globe, you may want to add a few more social networking sites that may be more relevant to those people. So let's take a look at the settings. So we're here at the plugins page, and WP Socializer actually has a settings button right here that you can click, but it also shows up over here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. So here you see a bunch of information on how this works, and you can certainly go through a couple of these video tutorials that they have here that show you how to do a few things, but I'm actually going to show you as well. These tutorials are actually a little bit short, and there's no explanation other than a little bit of text, and so I'm hoping to give you a little better idea of how to use this by actually going through it. So as far as the menu, we're right here on WP Socializer. Let's go down to floating share bar. And again, the floating share bar is this guy right here that is just kind of floating on the side of my content here and allows people to share anywhere they are on the page. So now you can change the position. You can have it on the left side of the page, or you can have it on the bottom side of the page and fixed there. And you have a couple of different color themes, white and dark. I happen to have a white background here, so the light or the white version actually looks a little bit nicer. And here, this is actually going to be pretty important. If you want to only show the floating share bar in pages and not in posts, or vice versa, in posts but not in pages, you can just uncheck the one that you don't want here. I happen to want it in both my blog posts and my website pages, so I leave these both checked. And also you can turn the entire thing off. You can leave this installed and just turn it off by clicking that. And that's kind of nice if you're not quite done customizing everything that you want to do with this, and you don't want a half-baked version of this to be up on your website while you're working on it. You can just disable it and then uncheck this when you're ready to go. So now we've got some different options here. You can see that I've got Facebook, retweet, that's Twitter, Google+, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. And those are the buttons that are going to be in our floating share bar here. Now, if you want to add more buttons, all you need to do is, let's say I want to add email. So I'll just click email and it shows up right there. If I want to get rid of this, I just double click it and it's gone. So I could add, let's say, stumble upon and Reddit, and that would just add to my floating share bar, but I want to kind of keep it a little bit smaller. So now here you can uncheck this if you don't want that bar to move along with somebody. If you want it to just stay up at the top here and not come down with them, you can uncheck this move the floating bar checkbox. And then you can change the width of the bar here in pixels. Now let's go over to look at the shortcode section. And click on shortcodes, and now each one of these little shortcodes can be inputted into any post or page that you have, and we'll add a social button. So if I want to add all the social buttons, I do this one. If I want to add an add this button or a share this button or a retweet button, you get the idea. I just copy and paste that little code into my post or page and it will be right there. And just so you know, you do not have to go to the HTML tab and input this. You just input it right in the normal text editor and it will convert itself into these buttons. And that's what shortcodes are. And that works for all sorts of things. It works for forms and anything that you ever see that has a shortcode in WordPress. You can just copy and paste that right into your normal text editor, and whatever the shortcode is referring to, that will just go ahead and display in your page. All right, so let's go back up to the WP Socializer area. Now you'll see we come to a little bit different set of menus here. And if you need to, it's a little bit hard to navigate this, but if you click in here, usually if you get the introduction, all the video tutorials and everything like that, just scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page and there should be a blue button that says something like Start Using WP Socializer, and that will actually take you to this page. So the navigation to get here can sometimes be a little bit hard to understand, so just know that you can do that to get here as well. So here you can select an inbuilt template, or you can go ahead and do a manual customization, and I usually like to do that. I'm going to go on to Edit Template here, and if you know anything about HTML, CSS, you can actually customize this template to have a different look and feel. Totally customize it to the way you want it to look on your website. If you don't know any of that stuff, I would just leave this alone. Of course, you can always reset back to the original settings, but if you screw something up, then you probably won't know what happened. So if we go back to button settings, you can click into any one of these and edit the button properties. And so, for example, with Facebook, you can use just a standard one. You can use a button count or a box count. Button count being the one I was using before, and that's this right here. So as people start liking this page, the number of likes will show up here. Now you can show faces as well. So if you click yes on this, then when we go up here, it'll have a bunch of little faces. I'm sure you've seen this before. Actually, pictures of the people who have liked this. I think that kind of clutters things up and it looks a little bit tacky, but if you're going to use that, feel free to do it. It often works very well if Facebook is the only button that you have on the side of your page, then it doesn't look so bad. But when you combine it with 5 or 6 other buttons, it gets to be a little bit heavy on that page and kind of draws your eye only to that and not to the content. So here you can change the width of a button. You can change the verb. You can say like or recommend. You can change the font. You can change the color scheme. And then you can actually add an analytics ID, and that will actually start tracking where traffic is coming from and then clicking on that button. So that's actually a nice thing to do. And I should actually do that for this website. So that's how you can customize buttons, and you can do that with any of the buttons you see here. So now that we've checked that out, let's talk about edit templates again. So we were already here. We talked about the CSS. Now, where do you want to show this template? That's a real nice thing. So do you want to show it in the front page? No, I don't. I don't want it to be on my home page. You certainly could do that just with the structure of my home page. I don't want it to be there. Now, I do want this to be an individual post. And what they're talking about here is not the floating toolbar, not this guy on the left side. They're talking about this stuff up here and this stuff all the way down here at the bottom. So do you want that to be in all of your pages? No, I really don't. So I don't want to show it in my pages. You can show it in your category pages, tag pages, any of your archives, RSS feeds, things like that. And as a matter of fact, I should probably show this in my RSS feeds. So when you've got that all set, you can just update. And lastly, I'm going to show you global settings, and this is all for manual customization. You can actually add your RSS settings here. So if you want to add an RSS feed button, I use FeedBurner. It's a Google product. It allows you to actually track how many people are subscribing to your blog. It works with podcasts as well, things like that. Anything that has an RSS feed. It's just a little easier way to track how many people are subscribing and kind of where they're coming from, and way to customize all of that. So I just went ahead and plugged that in here in my Google FeedBurner RSS feed URL. Now here you can load the buttons normally, or you can load them after a specific time, after a specific amount of time. So I could say I want it to load after 5 seconds. Now I'm going to suggest that you leave it to normal, because if you get this set up and you say you want to load it after 5 seconds, what happens is your page loads, and then as somebody's reading this, like 5 seconds later, these start to load. And what it actually ends up looking like is that your page just took a really long time to load, and that doesn't look so great for people that are visiting your site. Let's go back up here, and you can work with Bitly integration, and then you can choose where you want to load the button scripts. I would load them in the header. And then here's another way to stop all of this, to just disable the entire thing. You can keep all your settings, but you can disable it until you're ready to launch it to the public. Now let's go back to the Start button and just talk about some templates. You can go to Automatic Setup here, and if you hover over these, they should have templates as to what they look like. So here's a nice template. There's one. So you can essentially just go in here and pick a template. Let's say I want to pick this template, and I would just click out of here, and now that template will be installed.